So including food, including all kinds of equipment, safety equipment and things that the mine needs to use. A lot of that is now made locally. Right now Freeport's making a transition from the open pit era to the underground mine, because the open pit is playing out. And there's kind of a drop in production, and since this community development fund is tied to the production of the mine, there's a drop in funding for the community development program. So this is kind of a difficult time, because there's actually less money, even though it's still a lot of money. There's less money that's available until the mine ramps back up again with the underground mine. This shows the Lorenz National Park, and it's east of the mine. And you can see here that you can see the large green areas, the darker green areas. These are all national parks and World Heritage sites that were designated worldwide. And you can see the smaller area right next there, that's the Freeport contract of work area. So the Freeport contract of work area is actually quite small. Even though it's a massive area, it's actually quite small when you compare it to the Lorenz National Park, which is like 9 times larger. And all these ecosystems that run through the Lorenz National Park also run right into the Freeport contract of work. So there are a lot of endangered species and special things that, from an environmental and biodiversity point of view, that Freeport has to monitor and track. And then you can see here, these are the different ecological zones that run across the island, and they run right through the Lorenz and right through the Freeport contract of work. On this slide, this is the last slide on the Lorenz World Heritage Site. It gives you a little bit of history of the Lorenz, how it was established, and the size of it. And it's really an amazing and important biodiversity treasure that Indonesia has. Oops, I guess I have one more, and this shows some pictures. You have a nice pitcher plant and some of the biodiversity here that you can see in the area. Maybe have more. Okay, so and then this just shows the from sea level all the way up to the glaciers there in the first picture, and those are some of the tallest mangrove trees in the world. They're amazing. And it's another shot of the glacier, and you have these beautiful white pelicans that migrate to Papua from Australia, and they go back and forth, and you'll see those there. And then this is just a traditional dugout canoe with a sail on it. So these are the original explorers who found the Grasberg, found the Erzberg. They were actually mountain climbing and climbing on the glacier, and they were actually oil. They're part of Shell Oil group, and they actually wrote a paper about it and put it in The Hague. And it wasn't until many years later that Freeport, Forbes Wilson, who worked for Freeport, discovered the paper, and he's the one then who convinced the Freeport management to go in and take an investment in this mining opportunity. There were also a lot of plane crashes into the mountains around the mine, especially during the war. Again, it rains almost every day there. It gets very cloudy. The cloud comes in and covers up the mountains, and a lot of the charts and maps that the airplanes had did not reflect the correct height, and a lot of these planes flew straight into these mountains. And even today, Freeport helps a lot of people go up and try to recover the remains or get more information about the different flights that are there. But these are located in very remote and very treacherous locations, very difficult to access some of those. So I like this profile view because it shows you over about 100 miles, you're going from sea level all the way up to the mountains, and it just shows you how rapid a climb it is. And the very top left you can see is the Grasberg mine, and you work your way down. That's about 13,000 feet. You work your way down to the mill, which is about 9,000 feet, and then Tembagapura, which is Copper Town, which is the main town for all the workers where they work. And then the Tamika Airport is down in the lowlands, and then you have the port facility. And so Freeport had to build this road, had to build all this infrastructure. It was about a $4 billion investment to get the Grasberg up and running at the time. And this just shows you the very, very difficult terrain that we were working in. Then here's a shot of the Grasberg. You can see these are massive haul trucks, so there's little tiny dots in there in those haul roads. So the scope of this, it's about 5 miles across that you're looking at there. And it's just an amazing, amazing opportunity here. Okay, so this then shows you the heat road on the left. The very top left corner is the heat road. And this is a trail that was zigzagged back and forth up the mountain, up to the top there where the Grasberg mine is located. And all the heavy equipment then is dragged or pushed up this road to get it up to the mine. Down in the bottom right of that picture is the mill. That's the mill facility, so it's about 3,000 feet lower than the mine facility. And the top right picture is the original Ertsberg deposit, which has been played out and pulled out. It does fill up with water, and they put a small penstock into it, and it generates hydroelectric power for the existing operation. And then there's another picture of the Grasberg there in the bottom right. So the mine operation, they have a number of issues. They have acid rock drainage. You know, whenever the rain falls onto the rock, you create sulfuric acid, and this has to be managed. There's a lot of limestone surrounding the mine, and the engineers have designed the overburden pits and the operation so that they can minimize acid rock drainage, or they can pull it into the mill and they can collect it and they can treat it. They have had some overburden failures at times because it's high rainfall, high seismic events, as I mentioned, but no major failures, but they have had some. The underground mine, they've had wet muck and cave-ins. They've had some challenges with that, and a lot of times it's put them behind schedule or production. And it's going to be very challenging for them as they move into the underground era to keep the production levels as high as they were during the open pit era. So, and as I mentioned, they're transitioning from the open pit to the underground, and they're going to require a lot more employees to do that. They've got to do a lot of training. Indonesia doesn't have a lot of underground mining expertise, and so it's going to be a big effort for Freeport to make that transition. And of course, they're going to have to close the Grasberg open pit area and revegetate and close a lot of those kinds of operations. Freeport's the largest Caterpillar equipment user in the world. And this is just a shot to show you some of the big equipment that's there. This gives you a nice shot of the different, the complex different underground operations. They're going to have many, many miles underground tunnels connecting all these different operations together. And it's going to be a very amazing mine for the next 20 to 30 years. Originally, they had these ore trams that would take the ore from the mine down to the mill, and they don't use those anymore for ore, but they still do use the one on the right there is the blue tram they use to move people and equipment and things up and down. These were made in Switzerland originally, and it's like a gondola on a ski lift, but this is how they move people up and down efficiently up and down from the mine. That's a picture of the mill in the background. You can see that every flat piece of ground in the mill is used for something. And this was the heat road that I mentioned. Another story that we had was the geologists always called this elephant country because these big deposits, they were always looking for another elephant. You know, big deposit of copper is called an elephant, and so this was published in a paper, and some people thought that Freeport was affecting elephants in the area. So you have to be careful sometimes of the expressions that you use. For safety, there are a lot of safety issues here. I mentioned earthquakes, seismic events. We've had flooding events, landslides. We've had accidents on that road. It's a very dangerous road, and others. So these are some of the very difficult safety issues that mines all over the world face, but it's enhanced here just because of the climate and the remote location and the steep terrain. This is a shot of the mill operations. I mentioned they have some of the biggest ball mills in the world and crushing equipment, and again, they're very tight for space. The mine used to move about 700,000 tons a day, and the mill would process about 250,000 tons per day. So about 250,000 tons was ore, and then you had a lot of waste rock that also had to be moved up at the mine as well. And these are some shots of the large sag mills that were used, and that was kind of a technological EM technological fix that was used. We weren't sure how they were going to efficiently grind and crush all this rock in a very limited amount of space, and Freeport built some of the biggest sag mills in the world to accomplish that. Then you move down to Tembagapura. That's about 6,000 feet elevation, so it's nice, cool weather. You're above any malaria there in the lowlands. You have malaria at Freeport, so that's another challenge that they have. You have about 18,000 people that live in Tembagapura. When I arrived there, it was much smaller town. All the streets were like Street 1, Street 2, Street 3, Street 4. One of the things we did is we named all those streets, and we named them after wildlife or after rivers or different natural ecological things. And it kind of changed the temperament of the town. We did a lot of landscaping. We put in nature trails for people to hike around. They had a lot of recreational type facilities that Freeport built and really created a sense of community there. They have a mosque, they have a church, they have a nice store, they have restaurants. So they turned it into a really nice community instead of just a company-run mining town. They've had some, because of there's one lifeline road and they have 2 tunnels along that road. They've had tunnel collapses. But they have a lot of equipment, a lot of people, and they can quickly open those and get that back on track. And they've had to do a lot of work to keep that road open over the time. They have these villages up in the highlands, and Freeport's made big investments to help those communities. You can see here all the nice buildings, the church, the school that Freeport's built in those areas. Then as you move down to the lowlands, this is called Kuala Kencana. This was a new city that was built by Freeport north of Timika. A lot of the workers live in this community. It's a really nice community. They have fiber optic lines that go to all the houses, so all the houses are connected to the internet. They have a shopping center. They had a bowling alley. They had recreational facilities, tennis courts and things. And the idea of this town was to support all the different mining operations, not just the Grasberg, but Freeport had a very active exploration program, and the thinking was that they would find a number of mines in Indonesia, in Papua, and they actually have found a lot of good deposits, but because they're so remote and there's no roads in there, and they would have to invest so much in infrastructure, the price of copper being low, none of those have turned into mines yet, but in the future there is a lot of potential for additional mining in Papua. And this is the airport. Moses Keelangan. Moses was one of the guides, the first guide that helped Forbes Wilson go up to look at the Ertsberg, and he was a real leader in the Amungme community, and the airport today is named after him. We talked about the air transport with the airport. I'll keep moving along. This is our environmental laboratory that we built in Timika. All the samples are analyzed, all the water and soil and biological samples are analyzed there. There's a quick turnaround. It's very efficient. Indonesian lab is one of the best, I think, in all of Indonesia there. Then we come to another complexity of the project, and that's tailings management. And this again shows you the Lorenz National Park, and next door is the tailings area. Freeport takes the ground up rock that's left over after they pull out the copper and gold, and they discharge it into a river, and the river then transports it down to the lowlands, and that red area there is called the tailings deposition area, and that's where the tailings settle. And Freeport's built 2 levees on either side of this area to contain and control the impacted area. And so this is kind of a controversial issue because people don't like mines that put tailings in the river. There are only 3 or 4 in the world that do this, but they have to because of the topography of where they're located. So this is another diagram that kind of just shows you the approved tailings management